Today's guest is Henk Rogers, the owner of Blue Planet Software, which controls the rights to the video game Tetris. Henk sold his company Blue Lava Wireless in April 2005 to Jamdat for $137 million. He's here today to share with us how he achieved financial success at such an early age.
The story of Tetris is kind of legendary, and when you look on the internet and you see different versions, are we able to hear what your version was when you initially went up there and got the rights?
That's a long story. That's a whole radio show all by itself. The original Tetris game was made by Alexei Pajitnov on a machine called Electronica 60, which is the equivalent of a PDP-11. It's a dinosaur computer that doesn't even, it existed in the mid-'70s. Mm-hmm. It was an 8-bit computer. Anyway, I'm not going to bore you with all the details. That was the original game, and then he got some young programmer to move it over to the IBM PC, which is the only other computer they had access to in Moscow. When it came out, and you say which is the original version, there's a lot of different people who say, well, I have the original version of Tetris. Nintendo Game Boy, because of the 35 million units sold, is probably the most commonly thought of as the original version, but it's not. There are a few versions that preceded the Game Boy version, and Tetris had changed a lot by the time it got to the Game Boy. Probably the first one was Electronica 60. The second one was the PC in Russia. The third one was Spectrum Holobyte in the U.S. And there's a couple of versions put up by Microsoft in Europe, but that company disappeared and they weren't very successful with it. But Spectrum Holobyte was. Then there's the version that my company in Japan at the time, it's called Bulletproof Software, created for Nintendo 8-bit, and we were the publishers. There's that version, and based on that version, Nintendo created the Game Boy version. So that was created internally by Nintendo. That's the next version. About the same time in Japan, Sega came up with a coin-op version. Coin-op meaning an arcade machine. Mm-hmm. And that was very popular. So all of these versions are all different. And they're all, depending on who you are, you grew up on some version of Tetris back then and say, well, this is the right version of Tetris. And when you switch over, it's like switching over between a car with the gasoline on the right side and then the gasoline on the left side and the brake on the right side. It's impossible to play when you switch those things. So finally, since we've taken control of the IP, Tetris informed the Tetris company in 1996. We have standardized the user interface so that the brake's always on the right, and the brake's always on the left, and the gas pedal's always on the right. All the buttons are where you expect them to be.
So it seemed to be scattered ownership before, and then different versions, and then you consolidated everything? Is that what happened? Or did you own them all?
The ownership was with the Soviet Union in the old days, up until 1995. And so, until the collapse of the Soviet Union, and then it became a little murky what happened to the ownership. As with everything that was owned by the Soviet Union, but we believe that the rights to Tetris reverted to the author of Tetris, Alexei Pajitnov. And Alexei made a deal with me. He said, Henk, you need to help me make money out of this, because the leftovers of the Soviet Union are never going to share any of it with me. So basically, I brought him to the States. We became good friends. And he's still my partner today.
Huh. But in the beginning, when you first got the rights for Tetris and you flew to the Soviet Union, how old were you at that time?
1989, February. So that's 16 years ago. 35? Yeah, I was 35.
So at 35, was it kind of like a cowboy? It's like, I'm going there and I'm going to go and get this, or you already had negotiations set up?
No, I had no idea who I was going to meet.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know anything. I just got on a plane and said, I'm going to figure it out once I get there.
And had you ever been to Soviet Union before?
No.
Oh.
I had no idea what was going to happen. I just got on a plane. I got on a plane as a tourist. And, when I got there, it's like an adventure game. I tried to ask people for help. I sort of landed in Moscow not knowing anything about anything. my basic plan.
You went by yourself then, just you?
Yeah, I just went by myself. My basic plan was to make a friend that was going to help me find my way around. I play a Japanese board game called Go.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured if I could find the Russian Go Association, I would find a friend because, you have something in common.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent the day. Actually, I spent the day tracking down the Russian Go Federation, which is part of the Olympic Committee building, whatever. Anyway, there was nobody there.
Mm-hmm.
I found out where Go players play Go, and that's at a chess club called Shakhmat, which is checkmate. And that was the biggest chess club in Moscow. So I went there. And yes, there was somebody who I could play Go with. And this guy was like the third strongest Go player in Russia or in the Soviet Union. So I played Go with him. And that was interesting. The only part was that he didn't speak any English at all.
Did you
we
beat him?
couldn't communicate. I won that game, too. Yeah. I won that game, but it's like, so what?
Uh-huh.
So all that effort of finding Go players turned out to be a dud because I couldn't find anybody who could speak English.
Uh-huh.
I ended up hiring an interpreter. There is interpreter services in the lobby of the hotel, and looking back on it, she has to have been KGB. Mm-hmm. That's how they get through to all the people that come to Moscow. Anyway, she knew everything about everything. Mm-hmm. I hired an interpreter and I hired a driver, and we found the institute. The Elektronorg Technica, which is the organization which had the right to be able to sell software outside the Soviet Union. Nobody else did. Everything was done by ministries because there's no companies at this point.
How'd you even know that's where you had to go? Did you know that's where?
The copyright notice said Elorg.
Oh, okay.
Or Elektronorg Technica. So that's the copyright notice that I'd gotten previously from on boxes of Tetris. That's my only hint. And I knew that they were in Moscow. So I had an idea of what I was supposed to do, but it was really exciting. It was a game.
That's like a real-life RPG.
It was a real-life RPG, and I remember the first meeting. Well, I was in the lobby of this building, and the guy came down, and he said, "Mr. Rogers."
You spoke English?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Rogers, I'm blah blah blah, and what do you want? And I said, well, I'm the publisher of Tetris in Japan. I showed him the box of my Nintendo Tetris. I'm the publisher of Tetris in Japan, and I'm looking for the Game Boy rights. So I'd like to arrange a meeting with somebody tomorrow to talk about these rights. And he looked at the box and he says, we never licensed the rights to Tetris on this console to anybody. So I was like, oh my God.
Oh.
It's like, oh. So anyway, can I meet? I said, can we meet tomorrow? Because I figured if I just walked in, they wouldn't have the right people lined up, and it wouldn't be a very interesting meeting. I wanted to give them a chance to get everything together. Later on, it turns out, the KGB grilled him. How did you get this guy to come to your office? Because, he says, no, he just walked off the street. No, that doesn't happen. They put him on the point. Because they figured I'm the one who got him, or he's the one who got me to come there. Because he's not supposed to contact anybody without KGB clearance. Can you believe this? I mean, this is so ridiculous. They actually have a little guy with a little hat who writes down everybody's name who comes and goes in that building, and that goes reported back to the KGB. So he was questioned on it. It was very strange. But anyway, the next day, I had a room full of people, and I went there for that meeting. Alexei Pajitnov was one of the people in that meeting. All of them are suspicious. I mean, it's like like if a Chinese company that pirates your game in China came to you and wanted to talk to you. So you're going to have your lawyers there. You're going to have all these questions. So I had a room full of people giving me the third degree.
And just you?
Just me.
Is it maybe 10 people or?
Yeah, it was easily 10 people, and they were all like questioning me, and then they would argue with each other in Russian, and they'd look at me, and then they'd ask me more questions. And basically, I said, look, I'm just a simple businessman. I'll tell you whatever you want to know. This is how the business works. We don't have any secrets. This is how we do business. So at the end, they at the end I'd managed to diffuse the whole situation, and they said, well, can you make us an offer in writing? And by the way, when's the next time you're coming to Russia or the Soviet Union? I said, what do you mean? Well, we would like to have some time to think it over. And I said, you don't understand how business works. I'm here now. I'm ready to make a deal. If I leave, it means that either we have a deal or we have no deal. But I'm not coming back to find out if we have a deal or not.
Mm-hmm. Were you kind of in your stomach like, oh?
No, I was just going for it. At this point, I was just going for it. And they asked me to write a letter. So I wrote a letter, and I tried to make it sound as legalese as possible. It says this offer is good for 1 week, and if you don't take this offer within the week, then it's null and void, and the terms and conditions of this deal are to be confidential. And I used all these big words.
You mean you hand wrote it?
No. I had a computer with a little printer. I had all my stuff there. So yeah, I did all that, and it was pretty interesting. And a week later, it turns out I got the Game Boy rights.
So you stayed in Russia that whole time, waiting for
it? I said I wasn't. I told my guys in Japan that I wasn't coming back till I got the rights. So.
That's cool. Actually, let's talk a little bit more about that in the after show.
Yeah.
But one interesting thing is that your social mission for your company here locally is to have, Hawaii-based people working for the company to stay in Hawaii. And to help out Hawaii in general. Can you talk a little bit more about how that came about, or what your philosophy on that is?
Well, I came here in 1972, I guess, and I went to University of Hawaii. And at the time, it was very cheap for me to go. I wasn't a U.S. citizen, I was a Dutch citizen.
Okay.
It was very cheap for me to go to University of Hawaii, and I used to drive Charlie's Taxi at night and do all kinds of weird jobs. To make money to go to school. And so the way I look at it is Hawaii gave me the chance to become what I've become. And so I feel that I owe Hawaii something for having made me what I am today. And helping other students is the way I look at it, as a way for me to pay it forward. And I believe that Hawaii can be a center, just like Singapore is, become a center for hardware. We can become a center for software, because we have the influence from all of the Asian countries and from the mainland right here in Hawaii. We're able to converse in all those languages and have all those ways of looking at things. So I think Hawaii is the perfect place to do it. And Hawaii, I really feel Hawaii is my home now. And so I'd like to be able to say that I was part of making Hawaii into this new blossoming of intellectual property creator, kind of like a Silicon Valley, a Silicon Island, or we have to think of a new word here.
But it almost seems like, especially with the success of the Jamdat acquisition of Blue Lava Wireless, that gets people's attention. So we applaud your efforts, and it's amazing, and we appreciate your time. We want to thank Henk Rogers for joining us today on Greater Good Radio Hawaii. We appreciate your amazing success story and the experiences that you've shared with us, and we hope that you join us again. For you listeners out there, please join us for the after show portion, where Henk Rogers will share with us more insight into selling his company for $137 million. If you're interested in Henk's knowledge and the inside story of more successful entrepreneurs, please go to our website, greatergoodradio.com, and listen to the after shows. This is your host, Evan Leong and Carrie Leong, saying please join us next time for another episode of Greater Good Radio Hawaii.